Aloha, grade 3 to 5 Honu, it's Mrs. Rankin. We're on day 4 of our first piece to the table experiment, using this book, The First Piece to the Table, as our inspiration. When I left you last, we had a hypothesis. So it's a statement making a claim about what you expect to find. So right behind me on the board it was my sentence starter for one way that you could phrase the hypothesis. So let me show you a few things that are really important when you're writing a hypothesis. If I'm not sure how to start, I can use the frame of a if, blah, 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 then, blah, 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 sentence. So let me show you how I've used that here. If I say what I'm going to do. If pea seeds are soaked for 24 hours before planting, that's what we've decided to do based on Jefferson's garden journal and the little tip that Maya read in the book. All right, and then the then part. Then, what do I expect will happen? The soaked seeds will germinate, then the non-soaked seeds. So this is where your claim comes in. Will the soaked seeds germinate sooner, later, or at the same time? So if you didn't get a chance to write your hypothesis down, or at least think it through, stop the video now and go ahead and do that. I'll leave this up for a moment and then join us back. All right, by now you've written or at least said your hypothesis. You have a clear idea of what you think. So it's time for us to set up the test, the design part of the test. So this is where we pay very close attention to our variables. What are we purposefully testing? Our independent variable. How will we measure the effect of the thing we're changing? So what kind of measurements are we going to take? Usually they're numbers. And finally, what about the test do we want to control? What are those specific conditions that we want to be the same for all of the different seeds? All right, so we know that we're going to soak the seeds, so let's get a head start on that. If you want to do this along with me, you'll need some seeds and a cup or jar of water. It doesn't matter if you don't have peas. You can try it with what you have. Beans, peas, sunflowers, large seeds are easiest, but if you've got some old seeds lying around, or it's okay for you to take some seed from a pack at Ask Your Parents, go ahead and join me. It's important that I label each jar. I know that the seeds look very different now when they're in the seed packet, but I don't know what's going to happen once they're soaked. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure I label the jar with each variety. Okay, so we have our 3 varieties and we have our seeds. So I'll go ahead and take some of the Mammoth melting sugar. I think you might remember those were the seeds that were very round if you look back at your drawing. Remember how round they were? Kind of uniform. They didn't have a whole lot of texture. So I'm going to make sure that I put that in. If you've only got one variety of seed that you're testing at home, that's fine. Take a little swim. You don't need to have a lid on your jar, but I have these seeds sitting here on my desk next to my computer, so I want to be really safe about my electronics and make sure that I don't actually knock the jar over. So that's why the lid. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put the other 2 seed varieties into the jar, and then I'm going to join you again. So go ahead and stop right now, and I'll come back to you. All right, so now I've got my 3 seed varieties soaking in the water. We need to leave those for, what did the text say? 24 hours. All right, so now what we need to do is go back to the text where we'll see this page where Maya is starting her test, and this is what I want to draw your attention to. Before she's even began, before she has any data or any results, she's planning for what she's testing and designing a data table. So we need to do that too, because tomorrow we're going to put these seeds in. We need to start figuring out how will we record the effect of the soaked versus the non-soaked. So let me erase my board. Let's think about it. we're going to need a column or a place in our table for our independent variable, the thing that we're changing on purpose, the thing that we're testing. So in our experiment, what's our independent variable? Right, it's the seed type. Now we have 3 seed varieties, and we have 2 different treatments for each variety. So we're going to need how many rows in our table for 3 seed varieties? Each of them have 2 treatments, soaked and non-soaked. 3 times 2, 6. So we're going to need a pretty big data table. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and start at the top. Okay, type of seed. If I know that I'm going to need 6 entries, I'm going to divide this space in half and then divide each half into 3. That's just going to help me spread it out. So if you're working along with me, you can go ahead and do this, but you'll also notice on the video, if you look below the video on the STEAM page, you'll see a button to a document where I've created a data table. So if you just want to print that out or pull that data table up and copy it into your notebook, it might be easier than looking at the whiteboard. So that's an option for you. Because these are going to be pretty small, aren't they? One, two, three, four, five, 6. All right, so types of seed, that's our independent variable. How are we going to measure the change? We're changing the type of seed, whether it's soaked or non-soaked. What's our measure of the change? The time it takes to germinate, right? To emerge from the seed coat. So in order for us to tell the time it takes for that to happen, we'll need to record the time we start and the time we finish. And then if we look at the span or the length of time between those 2 points, we'll know the time it took to germinate. So let's add our planting date to our data and also the date that the seeds germinate. Okay, so we have planted. That's another column, and then germinate. That's another column. Now, here's a little extra that we can add. Our question was whether the soaking of the seeds would have an impact on how quickly it germinates. And our hypothesis reflects that question. But as long as we're taking the data, let's take some more data, just like Jefferson did and Maya and her classmates did in the book. Specifically, they looked at when did the first blossoms appear, the first pod, and when were they ready to eat. So if you don't think that's too much, I'd like to add it to the data table. So let's make another column, first blossom and first pod and eat. One with a little degree sign, a little circle above it, means first. So first blossom, first pod, eat. I'm going to put an exclamation mark. I'm excited for that day, yeah? All right, so we're really set now. We have our data table set up. I'll go ahead and fill in the type of seed, and we can start with that tomorrow. We'll review that column, so you can just be ready to join me tomorrow with your data table. And then we'll have our seed soaked. So we'll have that variable for our independent variable ready to go. And we're going to go ahead and set up the test and start it tomorrow. So if you want to plant with me, you want to have some seeds ready tomorrow, whatever variety that you soaked, same seeds. And you're going to want to have either a zip top bag, a sandwich size, with a paper towel, or if you have some little pots and soil around your house, you can ask a parent, maybe there's some pots that you could reuse, or even a paper cup with some holes cut in the bottom. If you do decide to plant along with me in soil, make sure that you have the same amount of soil for each cup. Again, we're going to be thinking about our controls. What are the things that we're going to keep the same for all of the different seeds, so that the only thing we're really testing is this difference in seed variety on germination time. Okay, so it's a little complicated, but I think you remember one independent variable, and ours is type of seed. That's the only thing we're changing on purpose. I'm really excited to set up this test and see what happens. And I'm even more excited to eat some peas. All right, I'll see you tomorrow. Aloha.